Today on the show Radical Ones, join your guest host, Cadu, as he explores Elektra's journey from Daredevil all the way to Deadpool and Wolverine. It's time to get radical.
Said he's having no trouble. It's simple.
Hello there. It's showtime.
What is this, trick or treat?
Did I do that?
Good morning, Charlie.
Sailor Moon, the champion of justice.
Deal with it. Daddy would have gotten us Uzis.
The power is yours.
Get down, honey, get down.
And look, I won't go far, okay? If the apocalypse comes,
Hold your fire. I'm a human.
Grace Jones.
Thunder, 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 thundercats.
Power of 3 will set us free. Power of 3 will set us free. Power of 3 will set us free.
But I ain't one to gossip, so if anyone asks you, you ain't heard it from me. No, you have.
No more room in hell. The dead will walk here.
Dooby-dooby-doo!
Hey Radical Ones, Cadu here, and welcome back to another bonus episode of the Radical Retro Rewind podcast. Today's episode is all about Elektra and her journey across the 3 movies she appeared in, Daredevil, Elektra, and Deadpool and Wolverine. I recently sat down and rewatched all 3, and I thought it would be fun to share my thoughts with you. But before we jump into the movies, let me tell you how this episode ever happened. A little while ago, my boyfriend and I were out walking here in São Paulo where I live, and we stopped at this really cool old record store. I wasn't looking for anything in particular, just browsing, and then completely out of nowhere, I spotted the Elektra soundtrack on CD. Now, if you're listening to this episode for a while, you probably already know this, but I absolutely love this movie. I love the character, and I collect pretty much anything related to Elektra. And somehow I have never found the soundtrack on CD before, so obviously I had to buy it. And then just a few days later, Evanescence released a brand new song called Who Would You Follow? It's a really good song, by the way. I definitely recommend checking it out, and I highly recommend their new album, Sanctuary. But that also reminded me of how connected Evanescence has always been to Elektra, since their music was featured in both Daredevil and Elektra. So between finding the CD and listening to the new song, I suddenly had this urge to revisit all 3 movies. And I mentioned it to Ryan, and he said, "Why don't you turn this into a bonus episode?" I immediately thought, yeah, that's a great idea. So here we are. If you're ready to revisit Jennifer Garner's Elektra with me, let's get radical.
My name's Elektra Natchios.
Thanks. That's all I wanted to know.
So let's start at the beginning. I rewatched all 3 movies in chronological order, which means we are kicking things off with Daredevil. The movie came out in February 2003. It was written and directed by Mark Steven Johnson, and of course, it marked Jennifer Garner's very first appearance as Elektra. Back then, superhero movies were really starting to take off again with the success of X-Men and Spider-Man. And honestly, I didn't know much about Daredevil as a character. I wasn't familiar with his comics or his story, but there was one thing that immediately caught my attention: Elektra. What's funny is, even before all that, I already had an Elektra action figure when I was a kid. I've always gravitated towards female characters in fantasy and superhero movies. I had Kimberly from Power Rangers, I had Storm from X-Men, I loved Charmed, I loved Charlie's Angels. I was never embarrassed to say that some of my favorite action figures were women. So when Daredevil came out, my excitement wasn't really about Daredevil. It was all about Elektra. For anyone who hasn't seen the movie, it's basically the story of Matt Murdock, played by Ben Affleck, a lawyer who's blinded as a child but develops incredibly heightened senses. By day, he's defending people in court, and by night, he's out fighting crime as Daredevil. Now for this rewatch, I actually watched both versions of the film, the theatrical cut and the director's cut. The director's cut definitely spends more time exploring Matt's work as a lawyer in Hell's Kitchen, and it's a stronger version overall. But since we are here to talk about Elektra, let's do it.
Good things don't happen to me very often. When they do, I get scared.
Nothing bad is gonna happen.
honestly, even though she isn't the main character, she leaves a huge impression. I would say she has about 6 major scenes throughout the film, and each one shows a different side of who she is. When we first meet her, she's introduced as this wealthy daughter of a powerful Greek family. She's confident, playful, and clearly still carrying the emotional weight of losing her mother when she was young. And I think this version of Elektra still has a softness to her that we don't really see later on. She falls for Matt. We get the famous rain kiss. She's trying to balance, this new relationship with living under the shadow of her father's expectations. And then she starts fighting. I absolutely love this. At first, she looks like she's just another rich girl, but then suddenly she's throwing punches, flipping people around, and proving she can more than handle herself. Sure, the playground fight scene is a little cheesy by today's standards, but honestly, I still have a blast watching it. And then everything changes because Bullseye murders her father. That's really the moment where Jennifer Garner starts playing a completely different version of the character because Elektra becomes obsessed with revenge.
I want revenge.
Revenge won't make the pain go away. Trust me. I know.
She throws herself into training, and we get one of my favorite montages in the film with Evanescence playing in the background. It couldn't be more 2000s if they tried. And I honestly say that as a compliment because it's iconic. She still isn't wearing her iconic red costume, but that black leather outfit has become pretty iconic. Then comes the rooftop fight scene with Daredevil and later her showdown with Bullseye. I've probably said this 100 times before, but I absolutely love action scenes. When I was a kid, I spent hours pretending I was in movies, choreographing imaginary fight scenes around the house. I honestly thought that I would become a stunt performer. So watching these sequences again brought back a lot of memories. Speaking of stunt performers, I had the chance to reach out to one of Jennifer Garner's stunt doubles from the film and asked if she would share a memory with us. So enjoy.
Hi, Radical Ones. I'm Danielle Burgio. I was one of the Elektra stunt doubles on the movie Daredevil. And I really want to thank you for celebrating her. She's definitely one of the most amazing, iconic characters that I have gotten to step into the boots of. And I mean, literally and figuratively, because they were some pretty gorgeous, hot black boots that went along with the whole black leather costume. And that's just always fun when you show up at work and they're like, this is who you're going to play today. It was an incredible cast. We had Ben Affleck. I got to double Jennifer Garner. I was her second unit double. There were a couple of units shooting simultaneously, a lot of work to do. And I got to fight with Colin Farrell, who was playing Bullseye up on the rooftop. So, gosh, when I think back to that, that's really what I remember is long nights downtown LA up on a roof. And those kind of shoots can be really grueling, but also there's something about them that are like the most magical. I actually kind of love a night shoot. And that's it. What could be better than that? Oh, I know. Well, I got to work with one of the most legendary stunt coordinators. His name is Jeff Imada. So if you don't know who he is, go check him out. And yeah, just of my whole career, definitely getting to play a little part of Elektra was definitely one of the highlights of my life. So thank you so much for celebrating her, and thank you for supporting film.
Danielle, thank you so much, not only for this wonderful message, but for helping create some of my favorite action scenes from this movie. Now, getting back to the ending, Bullseye ultimately kills Elektra using one of her own sais, which is true a pretty shocking moment. But the movie also leaves the door open for her return, because Matt later on finds a necklace identical to the one Elektra wore, hinting that she may not be gone after all. So, looking back on Daredevil today, it's actually my least favorite of all the 3 movies we're talking about, but that's okay because it introduced us to Jennifer Garner's Elektra, and this version of the character still has an innocence about her. She's warm, she's charismatic, she's vulnerable, and she's also incredibly capable. I know a lot of people have mixed feelings about Daredevil, but one thing has never changed for me: Elektra. I loved Elektra, and I always will, and honestly, I'm still happy. Alright, now we get to the movie I've been waiting for.
Her name's Elektra.
Like the tragedy. Her parents must have had a sense of humor.
Not really.
Elektra was released in January 2005 after Daredevil introduced the character to movie audiences. 20th Century Fox decided to give her a solo film, and to this day, Jennifer Garner's Elektra is still my favorite version of the character. In fact, we actually did a full recap of the movie a few years back, so if you haven't checked that out, I definitely suggest that. For anyone who hasn't seen it, the movie follows Elektra after she's become a professional assassin. She's hired to kill a man and his daughter, but everything changes when she decides she can't go through with it. That choice put her directly in the path of the Hand, and suddenly she's fighting for their lives instead of taking them. And I have to say, the opening scene still gives me chills.
Don't worry. Death's not that bad.
Yeah. How do you know?
I died once.
I was there on opening day back in 2005, and I still remember sitting in that theater watching Jennifer Garner walk into the screen wearing that red costume for the very first time. That moment changed my life. She looked completely different from Daredevil, now with longer hair, the bangs, the costume, everything about her felt so much closer to the comic book version of Elektra. I was obsessed. I'm still obsessed. I love the costume design of this movie. I think it's one of the best superhero costumes of that era, and that's exactly why I reached out to Lisa, the film's costume designer, to see if she would record a message for all of you guys. Enjoy.
Hi, Radical Ones. My name is Lisa Tomczeszyn, and I worked as the associate costume designer on the Marvel film Daredevil with the legendary James Acheson, and for the Marvel film Elektra in 2005, I was the sole costume designer. And Elektra was a lower budget project than some of the other characters, which meant that I had an incredible amount of creative license and freedom. One of the original concepts for these costumes was to give the fabulous Jennifer Garner a usable fighting costume. So we started out with concepts that leaned into streetwear, or that could swap from streetwear into superhero costume. But there were probably 111 sketches for this. I had no concept illustrators. I did all of these concepts and sketches myself. And as we got further and further into prep for this film, the studio decided that they did in fact want that sultry, sexy look that Frank Miller and Bill Sienkiewicz created in the 1980s comic. In working on this film, I did a deep dive into ninja philosophy. And one of the things the ninjas do is they use words and symbols for power. On all of Elektra's accessories, there is kanji cut or embroidered into them to designate certain things. Her armband says assassin. So if Elektra walked into your room, you knew you were in for it. The embroidery pieces were prominently on the belt of the coat, and these symbols said love, strength, and justice, because we know that Elektra's mission first started to create justice for her assassinated mother. I loved working on this film. It was a great pleasure, and I will always be thankful for the experience and expertise of my incredible costume crew. Bye.
Okay, Lisa, thank you so much. Your work helped create one of my favorite superhero looks ever, and hear your memories of the movie honestly made my inner child incredibly happy. What I love most about this film is how much Elektra has changed since Daredevil. She's no longer the young woman who falls in love with Matt. Now she's cold, she's disciplined, she's completely isolated, and she turned herself into this perfect assassin. And you can see that in every part of her life. Everything has a place, everything follows a routine. She's constantly in control because that's the only way she knows how to survive. I actually think those little details are very interesting because they tell you so much about who she has become without having to explain it. Of course, everything starts to fall apart once she's asked to kill Mark and Abby, and instead of seeing them as targets, she starts seeing herself in them, especially Abby.
There'll be more coming. What's coming next will be worse.
I have seen a lot of people criticize this more protective, almost maternal side of Elektra, but honestly, I never had a problem with it. Abby's a little annoying, but that never threw me off. To me, it felt like a natural continuation of the woman we met in Daredevil. She's still capable of caring. She's just buried that part of herself, after everything she's lost. Oh, and by the way, it's important to remember something. We're talking about Jennifer Garner's Elektra, not necessarily the comic book version. Every adaptation makes different choices, and this one works for me personally. Something else I really appreciate is the pacing. The movie takes its time during the first act. It lets us spend more time with Elektra before everything explodes into this non-stop action once the hand arrives. Speaking of action, this is where Elektra becomes an absolutely badass. She is confident, she's brutal. The fight choreography is better than in Daredevil, and Jennifer looks completely comfortable with the sais. Every fight has this elegance to it, and I absolutely love it. If you listened to this podcast before, you already know how much I admire stunt performers, so I couldn't pass the chance to invite another member of the stunt team to be a part of the episode.
Hi Radical Ones, I'm Furneaux, and I was one of Jennifer Garner's stunt doubles on Elektra. Now I've been asked to share a little bit of a behind the scenes story about what happened on set, and the story I'm going to tell you now I haven't told anybody, and that is that Jennifer Garner stole my bow staff. Now it's not as it sounds. When we went to rehearsals, they had a lot of long staff. Now you remember the long staff scene? She used a sai, but she also used a bow staff. And they had a lot of bow staffs there, but the one that Jen liked was actually my bow staff. And they're quite hard to get for our body type, and ones that move through the air and feel quite nice in your hands. They need a little bit of weight, but not too heavy. Anyway, she loved my bow staff. And so the stunt team came to me and they said, do you mind if Jen takes it home and practices with it? And I was like, absolutely not. She can take it home and practice with it. Came to the end of filming and I was like, oh, can I grab that bow staff? Because a good one is hard to find. And they said she'd take it at home with her. So she stole my bow staff. Luckily, Jen is an absolutely amazing human being, so sweet, and I wouldn't begrudge it for a second. So I really hope you enjoy this special episode on what an incredible character Elektra really is.
Kai, thank you so much for your message. It was such a funny story, and I genuinely hope Jennifer still has that bow staff somewhere at her house as a souvenir from this movie. Now, I'm not going to pretend this movie was a huge success. It wasn't. It flopped. It underperformed. Critics were unkind to it. And for years, it became one of those superhero movies people love to make fun of. But honestly, I think people have become much kinder to the movie over time. These days, I see more and more fans revisiting the movie and realizing it was a lot of fun. And I also think the movie suffered because of when it came out. Catwoman, Aeon Flux, they all underperformed as well. So it was like that, back then female-led superhero movies just weren't given the same opportunities to succeed, and they were judged because of it. So in a lot of ways, Elektra never really got a fair chance. But as for me, I always loved it. Is it campy? Absolutely. Is it a little over the top? Of course. But that's part of the fun. The soundtrack is amazing. The score is beautiful. The colors really pop. pop, and the action scenes are still one of my favorites to this day. There's actually one moment in particular that I never get tired of. Elektra is walking inside her old house, waiting for the assassin's arrival, and she hears them getting closer, so she takes her coat off and reveals their red costume underneath. I don't care how many times I watch that scene, I still have goosebumps. That's movie magic. And by the end of the film, Elektra has finally confronted her past, saved Mark and Abby, and found a new purpose. It really felt like the end of her story, but that's what we all thought back in 2005, because almost 20 years later, Jennifer Garner would surprise us all. And then Deadpool and Wolverine happened.
So just to refresh, you are one...
Elektra.
Elektra, yes, who could forget?
What's funny is that just a few days after Ryan and I recorded our Elektra recap back in 2023, the news broke that Jennifer Garner would reprise her role as Elektra. I honestly couldn't believe it. I remember reading the announcement and thinking, wait, this is actually happening? And I was so happy. After all those years, one of my favorite superheroes was finally coming back. Jennifer picked up the sais again, stepped back into the role, and suddenly Elektra was part of the Marvel conversation all over again. The movie, directed by Sean Levy, follows Deadpool as he is recruited by the TVA and ends up teaming with a variant of Wolverine to save his universe. Okay, but let's be honest here, the reason I bought my ticket wasn't for Deadpool and Wolverine, it was actually for Elektra. I made sure to go to an early screening and the theater was completely packed. I remember even Coca-Cola released those special Marvel's collectible cans. And of course, I bought the Elektra one to take it with me. There was no way I was passing that up.
If these two made it out of there alive, maybe together, we can get back in and take her down.
One thing I really enjoyed about the movie is how self-aware it is. It doesn't just celebrate Marvel characters, it celebrates an entire era of superhero movies. Because of the Fox acquisition, characters like Elektra, Blade, Johnny Storm, and Gambit all end up in the void, a place where forgotten timelines and forgotten heroes are basically left behind. I thought that was such a clever idea. It's almost like the movie saying we haven't forgotten about those characters. And then Elektra finally appears. I still remember the audience's reaction. The second Jennifer walked into screen, the theater clapped and screamed. I was cheering. I was clapping. It was one of those movie moments that I will never forget it. She's only in a couple of scenes, but Jennifer slips right back into the role like no time has passed. And she's calm, she's confident, she's dangerous. Exactly like I wanted Elektra to return. I also really like the updated costume. It still feels like Elektra, but the dark color kind of resemble a connection to the Daredevil suit, which I thought it was a nice touch. Would I have loved to see more of her? Absolutely, no questions. But I also understand this wasn't her movie. This was Deadpool's story. Elektra was just there to remind everyone why fans loved her in the first place. And honestly, mission accomplished. I had so much fun watching her fight again. She drives the group throughout the void, jumps right into action, takes down enemy after enemy, and looks incredible doing it. It was just great seeing Jennifer with the sais. And one moment that meant a lot to me was actually during the credits, because they included behind-the-scenes footage from the original Elektra film. And that honestly made me emotional, because it felt like the movie wasn't just celebrating the legacy characters. It was thanking them. It was a reminder that these movies and the people behind the scenes helped pave the way to everything that came after. And I thought this was really special. I really loved it. Okay, by the end, the movie leaves Elektra's fate open. Did she escape the void? Is there more to her story? We don't know. But for the first time in a very long time, there's still hope. So, here we are. After revisiting all three movies, I can honestly say I had an amazing time. Every film shows a different side of Elektra. In Daredevil, she is still discovering who she is. In Elektra, she's becoming this warrior I've always loved. And in Deadpool and Wolverine, she gets something I never thought she would have, a closure.
We'll make sure you get the package.
And we'll get our ending.
Okay, this December, we will finally get Avengers Doomsday. People are already talking about the possibility of Jennifer Garner returning as Elektra once again. Jennifer herself has been asked many times about it, but she's keeping it private. She's a little bit mysterious about it.
Avengers Doomsday. Yeah. Jen, it does keep coming up. I will riot if you are not in that film.
Do you hear that, Marvel? We are going to cause a riot if you do not do the right thing.
I want to see them do the right thing. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
I really hope she returns. Well, Radical Ones, that's a wrap on this Elektra special. This was a really personal episode for me because she's been one of my favorite characters of all time. Looking back, I realized this episode became more than just a rewatch. It became a celebration of the character, a celebration of 3 movies that I still genuinely enjoy, and most importantly, a celebration of Jennifer Garner. I know people have all kinds of opinions about these movies, but one thing has never changed for me. Jennifer brought so much heart, strength, and humanity to Elektra, and that's the version of the character I will always love. So thank you so much, Jennifer. And before I go, I have to say a huge thank you to Danielle, Lisa, and Kai for taking the time to share their memories with us. It honestly meant so much to me, and I know our Radical Ones are going to love hearing your stories. And of course, thank you to Ryan for encouraging me to turn this little idea into a bonus episode. And finally, thank you, Radical Ones, for listening to this episode. Whether you were an Elektra fan before or you're just here to enjoy a bonus episode, thank you anyway. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to follow the Radical Retro Rewind podcast on social media. If you like to keep up with me, you can also find me online as Cadu Luongo. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. And as always, stay radical.
Radical Ryan, he's ready to roll.